I forgot to record yesterday for the splashing watercolor, and I told them, I promised them I would record it today. So that they could, I'm going to start over again. And before I start this, I just want to say a couple things, because it does get right into it, and it's kind of important if you have to kind of catch what I'm doing quickly, because it's a bit tricky and it happens quickly. But I happened to have this scrap piece of 300-pound paper that had been sitting around for a long time, and never really had, the inclination to use it because it's not a standard size and I didn't have the use for it. If you have 300 paper, it's better to use it, because this technique uses a ton of water. So if you have it, great. And also with 300-pound paper, you don't have to tape it down, because it's like a board. But if you do use 140-pound paper, that's fine. It will work with that. But you'll want to tape it down. And I'm using so much water that I'm working on a towel. So I put a towel down on my table. Okay, so now we'll get started. So yeah, I want you to
put in our email addresses now.
Yeah, let's wait, because I want you to pay attention to this. Let's do it after. We'll have time.
You're going to start right now. Okay, good.
So I dumped the water on, and I'm spreading it around with my jumbo brush. Really, look how much water I'm using. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to use.
Can't see it.
I can't see it.
You can't see the video?
No, it's not screen sharing right now.
Start all over again or something.
Sorry.
It's okay. Life is.
There it is.
Yay.
I forgot to hit screen share. Okay.
Can you make it just a teeny bit bigger?
I can't make it any bigger.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
So yeah, notice how, I hope you saw how much water I poured on there. And I'm spreading it around with my brush. See, I'm going to just pour more water on. And I'm leaving a little bit of a strip of paper for my horizon line. So I'm going to wet that whole upper section really, really well. Lots and lots of water. I'm using my biggest brush. I actually want to get one of those really wide, like 3-inch watercolor brushes. Now you can see I'm leaving a strip of about 3 inches. I probably could have made it a little narrower, but I'm leaving a little strip of paper that I'm not wetting, and I'm wetting the bottom section there. Notice how my horizon line is not right in the center of the paper. For compositional purposes, you want it to be either above or below. I dipped, okay, you can't really see it very well. Instead of using a palette, what I've done is, you can barely see it right here. I've directly squeezed some pigment right out onto a piece of paper, and they're right next to each other. They're lined up. I have a magenta. I can't remember what color it is. It's some type of magenta, and then a blue, and then this is duochrome. It's an iridescent turquoise, and this is just a piece of cardboard. It's not super stiff cardboard. It's actually the cover from a notebook, that I cut up into a board, and I'm going to use that to swipe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip this into my paint, and I'm going to spread it across on the paper, but I'm not going to press down too hard. If you swipe it too hard, it will have a different effect. You'll see what I do here, but I just want you to. wanted you to tell that. So I'm dipping and I'm kind of lightly going along the surface so that I want to leave some of the white paper. And I'm just going to make a few passes here, and you can see where the pink is hitting the water, it's going to spread. And then where the turquoise is hitting the water, it's also going to spread. And then there's going to be this condensed strip of pigment along the dry paper that will read as the horizon line of the painting. This one is based on my sunset on the ocean painting. So the idea is to take one of the landscapes that you've done from this semester and simplify it into this abstract. So I'm just continuing to spread the paint until I get enough down there to work with. Again, you know, wanting to leave some of the white paper, and you'll see why. So I'm bringing all of my colors down now into the lower section. And now you're going to start to see why it's so important. And even with all that water, it wasn't enough to get that to spread. You really, because the idea here is to get the paint to spread out. So I have my spray bottle and I'm spraying more water on. And then I'm going to kind of use my brush to get it moving a little bit, to get it to move into that wet paper. If you have the 140 pound or even with the 300 pound, you know, the water may pool and puddle up. And so just be prepared. You'll have to kind of soak up the excess a little bit with the paper towel. But the key to all of this method is having a lot of water. And then you can manipulate.
Wow.
Yeah, this was really cool. You can manipulate the paper to kind of direct the paint and move it around. And that's getting it to spread. And now you can see how my empty strip of paper here has gotten much narrower. And the interesting sections of this painting are where the bottom half and the top half, there was a little bridge of water that connected them. But yet still I have this horizon line here with the more dense area of color. So I'm putting some blue with the brush down here. When I was going across the paper, I dripped some blue up here. So I'm spraying more water on, and eventually in this white area, I will add some more blue. Here, look, I'm squeezing some pigment of my iridescent turquoise directly onto the paper because I want some. This is supposed to be the water, the ocean. Although you'll see, I ended up turning it upside down for the final. I liked it better upside down. This is going to become the sky.
Arissa,
Yeah.
how did you get the paint to spread up? Did you add more paint to go up then? Because you had the blank strip.
You mean to get this to go up?
Yeah.
That's when I tilted the paper.
Okay, but wasn't there a plain strip that was dry?
Yeah, it's just kind of gradually what happened was it eventually it started to seep out and met the water, and eventually it kind of spreads out.
Oh, okay. That is cool.
Yeah, it's really a fun. This is called process painting, you guys. It's when the process becomes the product. And watercolor really lends itself well to this because it kind of can do all these magical things. So I So I've got some excess water kind of pooling up on the edge. I'm going to blot that a little bit and do a little more. I want to get more color to that upper section. So, you know, and you can see how the paint on the bottom can bridge across to the top. And now I'm going to try to work in that more pigmented duochrome color with my brush to kind of work that in a little bit.
Wow.
You want to, you know, it's really important your color selection that you do here. And you'll notice that, you know, my two more complementary colors, which is the pink and the turquoise, they're not exactly opposite on the color wheel, but they're farther apart. I bridged them with the blue in the middle because the blue is between them on the color wheel. And you want to do that so your colors don't get too muddy. I'm using my finger even to spread out that turquoise, blotting a little more excess on the sides. And also I went heavier on the pink and the turquoise, and the blue is kind of my accent color, you know. I have less of it even squeezed out on my paper there. So now I've got to integrate that blue splatter up there. So I'm going to do some more splattering with my blue. And, you know, again, this is kind of one of those accidental things that guides you, and it turns out to be a solution to the painting because that white part needed something more, and the blue actually helps integrate that upper section to the lower section. But I don't want it to be quite so splattery, so I'm going to kind of soften it a little bit and blend it by spraying water on it. I'm hoping you're getting how much water I used on this thing. I mean, I just put so much water on it. And I had to keep blotting, but
Is it a runoff?
um,
Uh-oh. Oh,
but
no.
what? What's the matter, Donna?
Oh, it's okay. It was just, I thought I lost the connection. For a
Oh,
minute, everything stopped.
oh,
Yeah.
that might be me. I've been having internet connection problems and sometimes I freeze. So
You froze.
right now,
Just a few minutes ago.
We're all freezing today.
I know. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet. So now I'm taking the brush. I want to blend that even more, so I'm going to do it with the wet brush. I only use this big fatty brush the whole time. The more time, you know, this will continue. The thing with this method is it continues to transform because the water just continues to act upon it with the paint. And it's going to keep changing. So be patient and let it just kind of sit and do what it's going to do, you know, and just keep adding water.
It's a cool technique.
Yeah. So what happened for me here was that in this center section, you can see where the paint's kind of coming up here. The water and the paint kind of settled into this area, and it was coming up more than I wanted to. So let's see, I think here I'm going to try to push it back down. I'm getting the excess water off my brush now, and I'm sopping up the excess with my brush. See that? I'm kind of getting it off.
It's still moving. Wow.
And I'm going to do some more blotting. So what happened here, this is really pooling and settling in here. So what I actually did was I got a little, here I'm going to try to get it to go down because this is all starting to run up here. I'm going to try to get this excess to kind of encourage it to move back down, right? So manipulate your paper. But then what I did was I found a little object. I can't remember what it was. It was just about maybe an inch thick. And I stuck it under the center section of this paper so that this wouldn't run up too high. But it still ended up kind of doing that. And I got a bloom, but I'll show you what I did to kind of help resolve it. Spreading that out a little bit. So just kind of doing the final touches. You know, you really want to just do the minimal amount of manipulation on this and let the process do its thing. But you get some really beautiful effects from this technique. Okay, so that was it. I let it sit and dry. And then this is the final piece. So you can see how that central part really seeped down here and it created this round bloom and I didn't really like it. So what I did was I cropped off this upper section, which didn't really have that much going on anyway. And I turned it upside down. I liked it better upside down. What I want you to notice is how much lighter the colors got. So, you know, that's why it's really important to use really just pure pigment on this and get enough on here, because with all that water, it's, you know, you think you have a lot of paint, but it's going to fill up a large area and it is going to get lighter. So it's important to use plenty of pigment. So here's the dry paper strip. You can see how much smaller it got, but how interesting it is with this dense pigment on top of the dry paper with just the whites coming through. And what I love are these areas where a little bridge was created and the upper section seeped into the lower section. You know, it created these really magical things. So, and I ended up turning it upside down. The other thing is, you know, the 300 paper pound does have more texture. You can see here, you'll get a little more richness to it on the 300 pound paper. It will work on the 140 pound. It totally will, because I've done it. But I prefer the 300 pound for this. And I actually want to order some 300 pound paper and do a bunch of these. I want to do a bunch of these. So anyway, that's the technique. Does anybody have any questions about it?
It's so fantastic. Yeah, I have a question. So the middle part that looks almost like brushstroke because of the texture, but it's not. Did you say that was done on dry paper before? Didn't you wet it super wet first, or after that?
I wet this area and I wet this area, but I left about a 3-inch strip of dry.
That's what the strip was.
And
okay,
that's where I scraped the paint. I scraped the paint along the dry, but I tried to have, you know, I would have been better off because I had to go back and keep repeating it. I mean, it worked out fine, but I would have been better off to have the paint spread across my whole board. And if you scrape your board with the pigment across the dry, but the paint touches the wet area on either side, then that paint will spread. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of, that's the idea behind this, is to get the paint highly concentrated along the dry where you have this, it creates really darks and also textures. Like these could read as trees along a horizon line or something,
Yeah,
especially if they were different colors, and this could read as a meadow or whatever.
beautiful.
But yeah, so that's kind of the idea behind it. It's important to have a lot of water, dry, a lot of water.
It's
It
great.
looks like you have some magenta kind of in the upper leftish part that didn't fuse in very much. Was that still in your dry area? It's
This
kind
part,
no, yeah, a little further left.
oh,
Right there,
here?
right there, yeah.
Yeah, when I went back a few passes to scrape my paint on the dry, I was trying to get the paint to go into the wet, and I scraped my board with all three colors, and I got some magenta on here.
It's a kind of a nice little bit there, but it.
Yeah, yeah,
How you
yeah.
got it, 'cause I thought that was the wet area, so I thought it would.
Yeah, this is
automatically
the
fuse.
wet. This was the wet area.
Huh.
Yep. Yep, I got some of that in there. So, this really is, it's like a process thing. And so
Yeah.
you are just kind of guiding the water and the paint, but you're kind of letting the painting is going to do itself, kind of,
That's great.
The
Any
blue
other?
ultramarine.
My blue was, let's see if
It looks like it has a little more purple in it.
I
in
think
some
it might
places.
have been my smalt blue.
So small.
Let me see if I can figure out what color. So yeah, my pink was alizarin. No, actually, you know what? I think my pink was quinacridone rose. Yeah, my pink was quinacridone rose. My blue was smalt blue. The nice thing about the smalt blue is it's kind of a staining color, and it goes into the textures really, it goes into the paper really well and brings out the texture. You can kind of see it sitting in here. It's really nice if you want that effect.
Cool.
So yeah, I used quinacridone rose, smalt blue, and then duochrome emerald, which is one of the Daniel Smith iridescent colors. So yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about, there are certain types of painters who are known as colorists, where the primary conveyance or the primary intention is it's about color. Like that's what the painting is about. It's about color. And in a big sense, that's what this painting project is. It's kind of a colorist painting. And so it's going to be really important for you to be very conscious and mindful about your colors. So for me, I've been at this for so long, and I was so highly trained in color theory and color mixing, and that it's kind of second nature to me, and I don't really have to think about it. But you will want to put a little bit of thought into your color. And hopefully the painting that you're selecting to do your, to do this from, your landscape painting, hopefully you've already kind of worked that out and you've got your colors mapped out. I'm going to see if I can find my the painting that I just did this from my mind. I didn't even actually look at this when I did the painting, but I did it from memory. But choose a work that, you know, that you feel has colors that are really working for you. Here it is. So here's the painting I did from memory, and I left out the yellow. So I just did the rose and the blue, and then I don't even really have much turquoise down here. I have this iridescent blue, but I changed it for the turquoise to be kind of the ocean color. You know, I could easily have done yellow here, but see, if I had done rose, yellow, blue, the yellow and the blue would have melded together and I would have gotten green. And I didn't really want green in this painting. The turquoise is one thing, but the green mixed from the blue and yellow, I didn't really want. So I wasn't even consciously thinking about that, but on some level, I made that decision. So, you know, depending on what you want to kind of evoke, choose your colors accordingly. Like if you want, I'm going to come out of this. If you want to do like kind of more of a meadow, you know, mountain painting, you'll choose more earthy colors and more umbers and greens and indigos, you know. And if you want a stormy ocean, then you'll have more like violets and, you know, darks and maybe magenta. So just choose your colors in a really intentional way. And also, this is so quick. I mean, the whole thing took me like maybe 10 minutes. You can do several of these, especially if you're willing to go through a lot of paper. You could maybe first practice on the back sheets of some paintings that you don't really like, if you don't want to waste your paper. And then, you know, once you kind of get the hang of it and feel, because it's actually harder than it looks. I know it looks pretty easy to do, but it's a little harder than how it looks to pull it off.
So Carissa, I wanted to ask you, you said your iridescent turquoise color was actually called duochrome emerald?
Yeah, there's a line. So the different companies of, you know, the brands have different names for their iridescent colors. And
okay.
in Daniel Smith, in their line of iridescent colors are called duochrome.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Other lines are called like iridescent or pearlescence or something like that. It's just that each brand has a different name for it.
Carissa, you said it's harder than it looks. What are the hardest parts, you know, that we need to be aware of?
For me, the hardest part was having enough water on the paper to get the paint to spread, and also the technique of actually doing this, the scraping or the spreading with the board. If you press down too hardly, too hard, you're just going to get like a band of solid color going across, and that's not really what I wanted. So it's the actual application of the paint on the paper and how you do that. And that, you know, you might want to practice it a little bit. You'll just have to get in. It's a hands-on, it's a very tactile, this is a very sensate, tactile experience, kind of like finger painting when you're in kindergarten or something. And the only way, you know, you're really going to kind of get it is by doing it and kind of more like feeling your way in. And it's a very intuitive approach.
It really seems wonderful, but
Yeah.
you know, like you say, it maybe it's not as easy as it appears.
Well, give it a try. Give it a try. You might,
I like
and
the results too.
yeah, and the thing is, like, you could actually use this technique for, you don't have to do a whole painting. Like for this project, the whole painting is with this technique only. But you can actually take this technique and apply it to areas of your other landscapes to get some really cool effects. You know, so that's why I kind of just want you to have this under your belt a little bit. And also, I think it's important to get a lot of experience with kind of wet painting, wet on wet, because that's how you really see and feel your way through how watercolor reacts with water on the paper. And plus, it's just so much fun. I just had such a good time doing it. It was so relaxing and so satisfying. It's like immediate gratification,
That's great.
you know. Instead of laboring for weeks on a painting,
Yeah.
do it 10 minutes and you're off to the pool for your swim.
Yay.
You come home and you've got this beautiful painting and you've got all these likes on Instagram and you're famous all of a sudden.
Right.
And, you know, think of what you could market these things for and make really good money for 10 minutes of work.
Good idea. I love it.
Oh, so hope you guys want to try this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Good. Yeah, and the other thing I would mention too is, you know, if you could work a little bigger, I think it's better. I mean, you could do a small 11 by 14, but I would encourage you to do a bigger piece on this if you can handle, you know, you've got to be okay with the fact that you might waste your paper, because, you know, it might kind of flop. But although yesterday during class, it's saying my internet connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yes,
Yesterday,
it got a little wobbly for a second, but you're good.
yeah, sorry. Yesterday during class, Molly Presser did 3 of these on the spot after I showed
Wow.
the video. And they came out great. You know, all of them, every single one of them, she did 3.
You're still recording the session.
Yeah, I guess I can stop recording now.